Welcome to the Creative Entrepreneurs Podcast, where it's all about turning your unique talents and perspectives into a viable business. And now, your host, Paris Hamilton.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Creative Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, Paris Hamilton, and today I am joined by a special guest, Ray Chard, who runs a chemistry tutoring website called chemwithray.com. So I have a special place in my heart for chemistry and those who teach chemistry to others. As many of you already know who are listening, because my degrees are in chemistry. So I'm excited to hear about Ray and how he's turned this business, I think, into somewhere that he can work or run from anywhere, if I'm not mistaken. So first, let me tell you how I was introduced to Ray, and then I'll jump into the interview. So I was attending a research symposium, and I was networking with people that I didn't know. I stopped and talked to this girl about her research because it looked interesting from the poster. And it turned out that she and Ray's wife run a company or a program called Smart Fit Girls and Smart Fit Chicks together. So I told her what my background was, and she said she knew somebody with a similar background. So I asked her who it was and what they did, and it just so happened to be Ray. So I reached out and made that introduction. So I just wanted to mention that because that's kind of a lesson in the power of networking and sharing your interests and goals, because you never really know who you'll meet or who they know. So we'll go ahead and jump right into the interview. So Ray, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe a little bit about your background, school you attended maybe, and anything else you want to mention.
Hey, Paris, thanks so much once again for having me on here. You know, I really appreciate taking a few minutes. But yeah, so a little bit about myself. I started out at Colorado State University. There I received my undergraduate in science education, essentially, right? I have a degree in natural science. I got a minor in chemistry, and I also got my secondary teaching license as well. So I sort of headed down the path of becoming a high school teacher. I sort of bounced around, and I decided I got kind of bit by the entrepreneur bug at some point in time after my undergraduate time at CSU. Bounced around. I actually worked on a couple different companies, even started a company that sort of went under, if you will, and then went back to CSU to get my master's degree in science education. And there I got bit by the entrepreneur bug again, and that's when I started my company now that I run called Chem with Ray. So that's sort of a little bit of a journey on how I got to where I'm at, you know, as far as my educational background and how I'm here today, so to speak.
Okay, thanks for that. I actually did not know about the previous company, so I think I'll actually start off with that. So would you mind sharing what the previous company was that failed and maybe anything you learned from it?
Yeah. Maybe the best way to kind of maybe go about this is let me just kind of tell you about how I got into the tutoring business, because my previous company was also kind of revolving around the tutoring industry as well. But you know, when I was in college, my freshman year of college, you know, you got to get a job, you got to pay, you know, as you know, rent and bills and things of that nature come up. So I knew at some point in time in college, I would definitely have to get some sort of, you know, work in just to help pay for some of the bills. And so one day I was sitting in some lecture hall, and I saw somebody who was offering a tutoring rate. You know, he needed, I think it was history or something, you know, $30 an hour for history tutoring. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I'm good at explaining things. I want to be a teacher, and I'm really good at chemistry. I'm like, I could be making $30 an hour teaching kids some chemistry. So I went back to my dorm room that night, man, printed up a couple little flyers. The next thing you know, man, I was the newest, hottest tutor on campus. So I just started out, you know, handing out, you know, my flyers outside of the general chemistry lecture halls, and I was charging $20 an hour. You know, and in my mind, that was like a perfect. You know, I could set my own hours, set my own rate, and I was working for $20 an hour in college. I was like, this is perfect. So that very first semester, I started my own, like, you know, kind of my like independent tutoring project. I had 2 or 3 students, man. It was awesome. Couple of semesters, fast forward a couple of semesters, I got to the point where I had a little bit over 100 students a semester that I was tutoring. So it just like, I exploded. I just had people out the wazoo. I was meeting with groups of people at like 6, 8, 10 kids at a time just to get through all the students that I needed to tutor. And that's when I decided to create my first company, which was sort of I was trying to like arm a bunch of tutors together. It was called Nice Grade Tutoring Service. And, that company, the philosophy was I was going to try to get a bunch of tutors together to sort of help loosen my load, and I could offset some of my load to some of these other tutors.
Right.
So that sort of was the idea. So I got to this point where I literally had so many students that I couldn't tutor them all myself that I decided, how can I hire other tutors? Can I get some other tutors to work for me? Can I offset some of this load to these tutors? And so next thing you know, I was running this company called Nice Grade. We had somewhere around 10 tutors working for us, and we were trying to, coordinate all these things that we had going on. We even like branched out to other subject areas. And then it just hit me. And I realized that I had, what I had fallen in love with was actually doing the tutoring and doing the teaching and doing the part of that. But when I got into this business, this Nice Grade Tutoring Service, what I actually ended up doing was managing people's schedules and chasing payments. And I ended up being like more of a collection, you know what I'm saying, helping my tutors make sure they're getting paid and all of these other things.
Right,
so
right.
That kind of, I just had no interest in that part of the, that side of the business. Or I had no interest in making that my primary business, you know what I mean? And the other problem that we ran into is it never seemed like any of the tutors were as good or as good of a quality as I was as a tutor, if you know what I mean?
Right.
And so that sort of provided some challenges as well. We started getting some complaints about some of the tutoring, and some of these other aspects of it. So, kind of a culmination of all of those things, we finally just decided to stop my first company, Nice Grade Tutoring Service, as it just kind of, we were growing too fast. We got outside of what we were good at, and I was doing things that I never wanted to in the first place. Like I said, collecting bills and doing all these other things.
So I was actually going to ask something along those lines a little bit later, but I guess I can jump into it now because it kind of goes with this. But since your site now is Kim with Ray, does that mean everybody comes and works directly with you, or do you have somebody else working under you as well?
So that's a good question. So that's when, the infamous business word, the pivot, so when we were, I was 2 years into business, man, I had this huge clientele list, and, I still wanted to be able to capitalize on this market that I had created. And the one thing that I knew that I had to do is I just had to figure out a way for me to tutor more people, and so it finally hit me one day. I was in the library, I was working, I had a couple of tutoring sessions, back to back to back, and I had two of them in a row. They happened to be in the same exact class. And like I was working out these problems that I had. And then like an hour later, I was working out the exact same problems to the next student. And I was thinking to myself, man, I'm telling every student the same thing. Now, and part of the reason why that was happening is over the years, I became really good at explaining things. You know what I'm saying? So I had really good go-to examples. I had good examples that I used for all of my concepts that I was showing students. Just the way that I explain things, man, I just used it every single time. So I was just thinking to myself, man, this kid just paid me $20 or $30 or $40 an hour for me to tell him exactly what I just told the kid right before him for $20 or $30 or $40 an hour. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so then it finally dawned on me. I was like, man, what if I just wrote it down one time really good, put it up online, and then I could distribute that to as many people as possible. And that was sort of my like aha moment, if you will. And that's how I switched over to this platform, Kim with Ray. And so Kim with Ray, I call it an online tutoring platform, but it's not a traditional tutoring platform in the sense that I'm not meeting with any of my students one-on-one.
Okay.
More or less, I've pre-created all of the curriculum. I've pre-created all the modules. I've pre-created all of the learning materials, and students move through our platform at their own pace.
Interesting. So it's like you've created online courses that are within your website, and people sign up to kind of go through those modules and help them navigate the coursework in their class.
Yeah, exactly. So, so this is, kind of, if we're coming back to like maybe the business side or the business perspective of things, one thing that made me really, really powerful as a tutor at CSU, I was just so familiar with the courses that were offered at CSU that, I could really hone in on exactly what the students needed to know for their course, make sure that they were passing their class, But once you go to this like sort of online, massive platform, you sort of lose that customization a little bit. You can't quite dial it in as good as, you would like to, I guess, in an in-person setting. So actually the way that the platform works is I started out by building curriculum to match textbooks. And so now what students do, so, if you're sitting in, you got your freshman level chemistry class, right? The first day of class, you get your syllabus. And it says on September 20th, we got an exam one. Exam one's covering chapters 1 through 3.5, right? So what you do on our platform is you actually log onto the platform, you find the textbook that you're using in your class, you select that textbook, and then you just start putting in your syllabus information. You say, all right, I got my first exams on September 20th, and it's covering chapters 1 through 3.5. So our system knows, okay, you're in this class, you're using this textbook, and you only need these sections of the textbook for your first exam. So our system will gather sort of a study guide for you that only applies to those first couple of sections that you need for your first exam. Once your first exam comes and passes, then you just do the same thing for the second exam. You put in the information you need for your second exam. Oh, now we're going to cover chapters, 4 through 7. So that information in the system spits out the modules that you need just for that section of the exam as well.
Oh, okay. So is this a platform that you have to constantly update? Like as new textbooks are released, as syllabi are updated each year, or is that not something that you have to worry about?
That's a good question. So as far as it's the course, let's talk about the syllabus portion of it first. Since the user is the one that's submitting all the information, if the course changes from semester to semester, or even within a semester, maybe, sometimes the course changes just a little bit, well, that user will update their profile, and that lets us know that their study guide needs to be updated as well. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So
and then as far as, go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine. Keep going.
I was going to say, and then as far as the textbook goes, one of the good news is, and one of the things that our platform does, good thing we're teaching chemistry, you know what I'm saying? The periodic table doesn't change every 5 years.
Yeah, right.
So when we're dealing with, general chemistry textbooks, and when a new edition comes out, for the most part, it's a lot of cosmetic changes. Not necessarily the content has changed very much. So what we go in is when a new textbook is released, we just go back into our system, we refresh everything, we make sure our system is still aligned with the textbook, and then at that point, we're good to go.
So do you only teach general chemistry, or have you taught other types of chemistry, analytical, organic?
At this point, we have just really spent maybe about 80 or 85% of our efforts into the general chemistry.
Okay.
Part of the reason why is that the general chemistry is a little bit more predictable. If you're in general chemistry, you got to learn A before you learn B. You got to learn B before you learn C. It's a very predictable way of presenting things. And for our platform, where we're trying to reach a massive amount of students, it works really well. Because general chemistry, 1 and 2 for the most part is cookie cutter.
Right.
Organic chemistry, analytical chemistry. Once we run into a little bit of upper level chemistries, that starts to break down a little bit, where teachers now can put their own flavor on some things. It's not as important to go A to B to C anymore in organic chemistry. And then if we're talking from a business perspective, we're talking the percentage of students from general chemistry to organic chemistry drops, significantly.
Right.
Really, our market, most college students in some sort of, scientific, mathematics, pre-med track are going to have to take general chemistry. Once you get past that general chemistry, not all of them have to take organic chemistry. So now we're, for us to expand our platform to organic chemistry, the number of students who would even utilize it would be just a fraction of what the number of students that would use the general chemistry for.
That's true. I think everybody with a Bachelor of Science has to take chemistry, right?
I think so. Yeah, at chemistry at some level, and for most students, yeah, it's just that introductory general chemistry. So, so that, you're talking about the percentage of students at a given university that need to do that. It's a pretty high number,
Right. So when you graduated, so you were just doing this website full time. Were you working with anybody else? Like you said you want to be a teacher. Were you working at a school when you started this as well? Or did you just go full time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's one of the, and I think, part of this podcast and part of, what you're trying to do is kind of help other entrepreneurs find, their passion, help them take that next step. I think that is the hardest step to take, is the financial aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? So to go like, hey, I know I got a business, I know I got a good idea here, and committing to that, full time is really hard to do, especially when you're not generating revenue or not being able to support yourself. So for several years, I actually was bartending and waiting tables part time. You know what I mean? A couple nights a week, on the weekends, doing some things of that nature. When I was still working on the company full time, and then when I was working through my master's degree, I was a graduate teaching assistant. So that gives you some sort of stipend a little bit. That sort of helps offset some of your costs,
Right.
which also allowed me to continue to work on the business full time as well. So I would say that I've probably been Chem with Ray, we're just shy of our 3-year anniversary. I would say of that 3 years, maybe a year, a little bit more than a year, I've been unemployed. Whereas Chem with Ray was my only source of income for that entire time. For the other 2.5 years or so, I probably had some part-time work just to help, support life. You know what I mean? Life
Right. So before you were saying some tutors were charging $30 an hour. When you started as an undergrad, you were charging $20 an hour. But now you have these kind of, is it automated platforms where you've already done the work, pre-done the work, and you kind of distribute the work to those who need it. So how much would it cost a student to use your platform to get through the semester?
That's a good question. Right now, the way that our platform works is it's $25 a month. And that allows you to create your study guide and gives you unlimited access to your study guide. So at that rate, for a student, you're talking I think a fairly affordable rate. If you're talking 4.5 months of the semester, it's probably $125 to have a completely custom online tailored web experience that helps you with the course that you're registered in.
Yeah.
So, at that rate, I felt like that we were really, creating a product that was not only excellent, but really affordable for just your standard college student. When I was in college, for me to pay $20 or $30 or $40 an hour for private tutoring, that's a lot, especially since you got to meet with that tutor probably once or twice a week, so you're talking maybe, $150, $200 a month in just your tutoring costs. So the way that our platform's set up right now, unlimited access, that gives you access to all the videos, all the practice problems, all the notes, everything for $25 a month.
And that's a really good price when you consider the $20 or $30 per hour that a tutor would charge, because a student typically might need 1 or 2 hours per week with a tutor. So that can definitely add up over the course of a semester, which is like
absolutely
5 or something months.
Yeah. You're talking, 4 times a week, or you're talking 4 times a month. Let's say you just did once a week, 4 times a month, 4 months. That's 12. You're talking 12 to 15 hours of tutoring potentially you could pay privately on the low end. So, and we also wanted to make our website accessible for the crammer, the student that needs to just cram everything in before an exam, or, our website's a perfect fit for that student who has been doing pretty well with the final exams next month, so for just $25, they can sign up for our website 1 month, hit the curriculum hard, and then have everything that they need to go for their final exam. So the way the website's set up is that, it's just month to month. You can cancel whenever, $25 a month.
Yeah, that's a good deal. I'd recommend it.
Appreciate that.
So let's go into kind of how you got the website up and running. So you were did you say an education major with a minor in chemistry? Was that it?
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And your website looks very nice, and I'm sure with the website and the online courses and the automation that you have going on, did you need a coder and somebody else to create this website for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I got a 2-part answer for that. One of the most important, once again, kind of time back, I know we'll probably get a little bit more to maybe the business side of things here in a little bit, but one thing to sort of tie back is, when you're creating, or if you're thinking like, oh man, should I start this company? Should I create a company? What, I have this idea, how can I go down this path? One of the most important things I think you can do early on is if you can create a product and get a sale on that product for as fast and as cheap as possible for you, essentially creating your MVP or your minimal viable product just to see if your concept is actually something people would pay for. That's definitely the way you want to start. And so when I had come up with this brainchild, I actually used Wix.com, man. And this isn't a plug for Wix or anything, but I used one of those drag and drop website builders.
Right.
Where you pay, $20 a month and you can create a website on your own. And I used the drag and drop website builder and a private YouTube channel to hold all of my content for the very first semester that we ever ran Chem with Ray. Once again, the point there was being, this is without us dropping, dollars into a website designer or a website builder. We could build this product for, costing us $20 to $30 a month just to host a website. We throw all of our content up on a private channel on YouTube. It's not pretty, it's not sexy by any means, but at least there was a product there that people could purchase and utilize,
Right.
And that first semester was all about, hey, will people even pay for this? Is online tutoring something that will replace in-person tutoring? So we ran that for a semester, and it was like, yes, okay, great. It was more successful than I thought it was going to be. We had more students on that platform than I thought that we would ever have. And so that was like, that was our aha moment. From that moment, though, we did bring in a third party, though, to build our website.
Man, you touched on some good stuff there. Like telling people that they need to test their idea before they actually jump full force into it is something that they definitely need to do, because they can spend tons of money on something that might not even fly with the audience that they're trying to gather.
Right. And the other thing is, you might even have like this idea for a company in your mind, but you put it together and you send it out to market. Maybe you realize that the consumer doesn't interact with the product the way that you are expecting them to.
True.
So that's another reason why, if you can get something out as quick as possible, just get it into the consumer's hands as quick as possible. Now you get a feel for how they're interacting with it. So before you spend so much money realizing, oh snap, they don't even use it the way that I thought they would use it, but they love this product, but they're using it in this light, or using it in this way. Now before you spend all kinds of money down a road that was probably, not going to be as, lucrative in the long run, now you can just do a slight pivot, and now you can, invest the money after you've seen the consumer use that product. So that's, it's I always think of it as like, how you test, you're making some spaghetti, you want to test if the spaghetti's done, and you throw it against the wall. You ever heard that? And if it sticks, the spaghetti's good and ready to go. That's how you should think about the very first start of your business. You gotta just make spaghetti as quick as you can, and you gotta throw it against the wall. If it sticks, then you go, okay, now you can upgrade from spaghetti. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if it don't stick at that point, then you might not have something, and now you're glad you only spent, maybe 2 months of your time and a handful of your resources, but now you realize, okay, bad idea. Go on to something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and when you do something like that, it's kind of like you're launching the beta version of your product. So even the first users of it, they can give you feedback on what works for them, what doesn't work for them, how they could better interact with your platform. And it just gives you more ideas for when you launch the real version of your product.
Absolutely. It don't matter how good of an idea you think it is. It only matters how good of an idea your consumer thinks it is.
Yeah.
Like, so that's what you got to do. You might have something, you get it out to them, see the consumer interact with it. Once you see them interact with it, then you realize, oh, okay, that gives you even a better idea of how to, go on and get the second iteration and the third iteration going.
So this is pretty much hands-off business, really. So you don't really have to do much, right?
Yeah, at first, a lot of it's the curriculum development piece.
Right,
it takes a long time, If there's any educators out there listening, you know how hard it is to generate content, to write questions, and to come up with, meaningful things. And that takes a lot of time. I've put a lot of miles in front of a video camera, you know what I'm saying? Just recording lectures and doing some of those things. But, one of the most important things, I think also, one of the greatest things about being an entrepreneur is if you can find a way to make money without working, that's what being an entrepreneur is all about. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can find a way to capitalize on an idea. So that was my goal the whole time when I was building Chem with Ray, man, is I wanted to get this to a place where it would generate revenue without me working. Now it didn't happen overnight, you know what I'm saying? And, and I still work on it constantly, but at least it's at the point now where right now I'm maintaining instead of building, so to speak.
Are you able to track like where your students are coming from? Like, do you know how many states you've been able to help out so far?
Yeah, we have a pretty good idea. We have students from a little bit over, I think we're at 10 or 11 different universities right now. Primarily from Colorado, Ohio, and Texas are our three major focal points of states that we have a cluster of users. So we have all over the Front Range in Colorado, CSU Rams, CU Buffs, down in Boulder. We have a couple of universities in Texas, the University of North Texas. And then in Ohio, we have Akron University, Ohio State University. We have several students at Purdue University. So we're kind of scattered a little bit, but primarily in those three states are where our major user base is.
So when you were talking about the videos, you said you spent a lot of time in front of video camera recording lectures. Is it kind of you in front of a chalkboard or a dry erase board, or is it you use a software where you can draw on your screen and the student can see what you're drawing on the screen?
Yeah, no, we use just the most standard, basic, generic setup possible. It's basically just a camera and a whiteboard. That's it. There's no video editing. There's no flyovers of text. There's no digital platform that we write on. I think maybe if we go down the path where we want to continue to grow this company, I think that's something where we might want to look into eventually. But, at the end of the day, I think what we found, and this is part of creating that beta product and getting it out there, we found for the students, they had no problems with it. They were paying for the content. They didn't care how pretty the content was necessarily. Of course, they wanted the audio of the video to be good and have good video quality, but
right.
They're paying for what's on the whiteboard. It don't matter if it's on the whiteboard or it has a pretty flyby of text or it's animated. It's the same content. So for our users, we did a lot of Q&A with our early users, and they didn't care. They had no problems with it just being a whiteboard and me. Now that for us now is the cheapest, easiest, fastest way to get content out, and that was the way the users liked it. So that's a perfect win-win. Another good example of how maybe just getting a product out there, getting it tested as quickly as possible, gives you that feedback, and you're like, oh, well, I don't need to spend thousands of dollars in video editing and video equipment because all they care about is a whiteboard and a dry erase marker,
Yeah, man. If it works, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Hey, exactly.
I'm with you. So how do you do the marketing for the website?
Marketing is the devil. Marketing, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. Marketing is the hardest part of our business. No question. And it's not something I ever thought it would be. In my mind, marketing is just such such an animal, and it's such a challenging, difficult animal. So marketing is a real big challenge for us. We still don't even know the right recipe. We still don't even know the correct, concoction of marketing that works for our company. Still, we're still working on figuring that out for us. I will say though, primarily our users it's an organic user base for the most part. So, which I suppose is the best form of marketing. So we've grown primarily through just user to user, expansion, people word of mouth, things of that nature. We've tried tons and tons of other marketing. We've tried traditional marketing routes, advertising and campus newspapers and things of that nature. We tried the social media, paid ads through Facebook and that route. We've tried, the pay-per-click campaigns through Google and AdWords and all of those things. We've even hired student ambassadors to be on the ground level at universities, spreading our message for us. So, a combination of all of those sort of marketing tactics. We've tried a lot of them for sure.
Right, I see. Have you ever tried reaching out directly to maybe department chairs or coordinators of general chemistry at different schools and having them maybe send out a blast email?
Yeah, and that is something that we've approached. The university is a very interesting space in general, as far as the spectrum of personalities that you run into, especially at the professor level.
I agree.
You get a lot of professors who are, on maybe the sour end of the spectrum, where they, in their mind, they're like, you don't have a PhD, you're not qualified to teach this, and there's sort of maybe like that hierarchy sort of thing here. And then you get to the other end of the spectrum, and you got professors who are just so happy to help and support their students in any way, shape, or form possible, So we sort of interacted with that full scale of the spectrum. As of right now, we're not really seeking those endorsements from the professors. We're trying to see if we can kind of get away with, not necessarily around it, but, we haven't really gone down that route as hard as we could. We have spent some time, though, creating some of those connections, and I think a lot of those connections we've created have been meaningful for sure.
Right. So, if you don't mind me asking this question, but how much is the website actually currently bringing in for you?
We're a very seasonal business for us, so
yeah.
we are, it's one of those things, sprinkler companies don't make money in the wintertime, kind of those sort of things. And so this last year, we averaged about 45, 47 users per month.
Okay.
So that gives you a little bit of perspective.
Right.
Although you realize it ebbs and flows, right? On a low month, we might have only had 10 or 12, whereas in the month of December with finals week, the month of May with finals week, we're sitting somewhere around the 80 mark for that month, so to speak. So, it ebbs and flows. It goes up and down. Some semesters are just better than other semesters, but we sit right around about a 40, 45 student average for the year.
Okay. So if you could pinpoint one or two things that you think might be responsible for your success with the website, what do you think those might be?
That's a really good question. I think as far as the success of the website, I believe it's easy to use. It's very accessible for students, and all of the content that's there for them has been customized and tailored to their experience only. We really focus on, like I said, I've used the word a couple times, the mass customization. So we're applying to the masses, but we're still trying to be at least some level of customized to an individual user experience. And so the fact that every student that comes onto our platform gets a completely tailored study guide to their course, I think is really something that's very powerful for our course. And for $25 a month, I think a lot of students will just try it out. You know what I mean?
Right.
You ain't got a lot to lose for $25, So I think that's also something that is helping our user base grow.
So I'm guessing it's a cancel anytime type of deal. They don't have to pay for the semester
anytime. Yep, exactly. Yeah, and it actually it's the way that we kind of set it up. Kind of from a little bit of a business, ploy, a little bit of that, kind of helping them guide them through there. But you can set up and build your study guide for free, and then you actually get 72 hours to interact with it for free. And then once you've purchased, it doesn't save any of the information, but once you've purchased the study guide, then it finally it saves it for you. You know what I'm saying? And then you can go back to it at any point in time.
Okay.
So we sort of use a limited capacity, then you get full access after you subscribe, so to speak.
Right. So have you had any major setbacks or any failures with this business?
Major setbacks is, maybe one thing. We've done some things to the platform, where I think we might have chosen to go a route that we probably shouldn't have, There's been a few times where we've invested some money to try to add some features to our platform that didn't quite pan out or didn't quite, the students didn't quite utilize it, or, we didn't get that return on the investment as I thought we would have. So, as far as, major setbacks go, I think we've made some mistakes as far as choosing to develop our platform, grow our platform in certain directions. I think that was one thing. We've done that a couple of times where we spent some dollars and we didn't quite see the return on those dollars. That's the hardest part about being in business. At the end of the day, you got to generate revenue, and you want to capitalize on the revenue you're spending. So to spend money and not make money, that's a difficult thing. So I would say that's the biggest challenge we've run into up to this point in time. We haven't really. Other than that, I think we're sort of we're small enough that I don't think we have any of the major issues, that maybe some of the largest companies face.
Right. So I know that in entrepreneurship, things don't always go as planned and aren't always easy. So in those times, what is something that truly motivates you to do the things that you do?
Yeah, that's another really good question, because being an entrepreneur, and specifically being somebody who is, like a primary owner of a business. Like, let's say some people go into business with partners and things of that nature, but an entrepreneur is literally the loneliest job in the world. Because if something goes wrong, you have nobody else to bounce something off of. You think about maybe your current work situation, and you think about, when you were in school or going through your education, something happens, at least you have somebody to talk to. That'll sort of help you think through it, you know what I'm saying? Give you some thoughts through it. As an entrepreneur, you don't really have anybody. You're the guy, right? So something happens, you're just looking at yourself for that, And I know you mentioned my wife earlier on, bless her heart, man. She's talked me down from the ledge many, many a time. Just to say, keep going and keep moving. But still, then again, it's like I said, at times it's the loneliest job in the world. So,
right. So, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. Have you ever thought about maybe getting a coach or finding a mentor?
really, that's something that I've given a lot of thought to. I've actually been privileged to be a part of several different incubation programs. Actually, with my very first startup that I mentioned earlier on in our conversation, one of the reasons why I started this is I was selected as one of 12 student startups at Colorado State University. And what CSU does is they have this program where they take 12 startups and they sort of give them mentorships for an entire year. They give them a little bit of grant money and they sort of help get their businesses off the ground. So through that, I've actually had the opportunity to work with a handful of mentors. And then a couple of years later in my Chem with Ray company, I actually ended up competing for a business pitch competition called the Blue Ocean Enterprise. And if you're not familiar with it, it's the largest business pitch competition in the United States. And so my company, I'm very lucky that the Blue Ocean Enterprise is here in Fort Collins where I live. It's sort of down the street. And I was lucky enough to compete with it in the second year of the Blue Ocean Enterprise Challenge. So through that, there's quite a bit of mentorship and things that come out of that as well.
Right.
So I've had my handful of mentors along the way. I will say with a grain of salt, though, that mentoring and coaching in business is not like mentoring and coaching in life or in school or in sports.
Not at all.
It was. I found it to be not as helpful as I thought it was going to be, if that makes sense. Because the one thing about business that I find really, really interesting is if you have a problem, let's say you have an issue in your business or you have this challenge, if you will. If you ask 10 business people, you get 10 different answers.
So it's like you weren't working with anybody who actually knew your area. So they were going from their own perspectives.
And even if they do know the area, you know what I'm saying? There's in business, it's such a unique situation that there's so many different ways to accomplish one problem.
Right. And
so many viewpoints on that one problem, and so I always found business mentoring, I did find it helpful at times, definitely challenging me to think through some of the basic business things, think through some of those logistical things. But I found myself oftentimes coming into a meeting with my mentors with 3 or 4 problems, and I walked out of that meeting with 7 problems. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, I was supposed to come out of this meeting with less problems than answers, and now I got more problems than no answers. So, I think business mentors are the best because they will challenge you to think about your company. But I don't think I would go into a business mentor meeting thinking this person's going to give me solutions, if that makes sense.
I got you.
So that was my experience, at least with the handful of mentors. It's almost like you ask them a question and they answer with another question.
That sounds like a difference between like coaching and consulting. Like the coaching will do that. They'll dig in and try to get you to answer the question yourself. And then consultants usually specialized and they do provide you with some answers and some strategic advice, something that you can actually act on.
Right. Yeah. I guess that's a good point. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, I know that there's marketing consultants, business consultants, and growth consultants and acquisition consultants out there in this world that do tremendous work in their fields,
Right.
But once again, if you're talking about like getting some business mentoring, that's what I would say, man. Just, they'll challenge you to think, or you might not get as many answers as you are hoping to get.
It's possible. Definitely possible.
Yep.
So actually, I want to touch on something else that you mentioned. So you mentioned that you got some funding from CSU and I kind of wanted to touch on, did you use that to pay the coder who developed the website for you?
We have used some of the funding at some point in time to pay for that, but that early on in our business, we used a lot of that funding to create our minimal viable product. That was what we used that funding for, and then we were at the point from our minimal viable product that we were able to self-fund the second development of our platform. If that makes sense. So
that makes
I guess
sense.
in a way, yes, we sort of maybe doubled down or we sort of monopolized on the first initial investment, but that was based on creating our minimal viable product and then taking the revenue from that. Then we rolled it back into our newest platform.
Okay. So I know one of the things that some people have hesitation about is kind of sharing their idea with a coder because they might feel like the coder might try to steal their idea because they don't really know the coder. So can you tell me kind of how you found your coder and how you managed them if you don't really know what it is that they're they're doing on their end, if that makes sense?
Yeah. We got really, I mean, we did get very lucky. This is one place that we were very fortunate in our company. We actually used a junior developer, and we actually didn't hire out a team we've only hired out a team a couple times just to fix a component of our website that we were having a little bit of a challenge with. But I actually used a junior developer at the college level. He was a college student, and I used him for he built about 90% of our platform, and I think depending on what you're trying to get together, I think that a lot of times you can get away with using a junior level developer to sort of, to develop that platform. From that perspective, I think it's, I think that a lot of companies though, kind of speaking back towards your, how do you trust them or, kind of share your ideas with them. I think for a lot of companies, a lot of them will do some disclosure agreements and things of that nature. That's not a very common thing I see nowadays. And, it's all about, you gotta trust your gut, and trust that person. And, we brought in a junior level developer, like I said, and, he just seemed like a good kid, and a great guy. He had a knack for building websites. And so we showed him all of our cards and said, here's what we need you to build.
Okay. So just kind of taking that step out on faith.
Just saying, I would say go. Unless you got, some top secret stuff, I don't think that there's, I've never been as worried saying, like, explaining my business inside and out to somebody else.
Right. Okay. Nice to know. So if there was somebody out there who maybe had knowledge of a different subject other than chemistry, since you got that on lock, maybe history or politics or something else, is there any advice that you would have for them if they wanted to turn that business into a tutoring business online?
Yeah, a couple things just come to mind, right away. Is I was in the business for a long time. I've been tutoring now. I'm coming up on this will be my 11th year tutoring this fall. So I'm just coming up on my 11th year. Kind of being in the tutoring business. I think it does take some time and some experience. But let's say you are an experienced tutor, you've been tutoring for a couple of semesters, you sort of started to build a clientele base maybe a little bit. I don't think it's very hard at all just to start to record some of those lectures. Especially, I know if you've been tutoring for some time, I know you kind of have your spiel that you give for each one of those given subject areas. As far as going to the next level, there's a lot of companies out there right now who are doing what we do in a more general sense. There's Udemy and Coursera, and now I think YouTube even has a private paid for channel kind of use only as well. So, those what they call MOOCs, massive online open classes. There's tons and tons of curriculum that's being delivered online, and there's tons and tons of platforms allowing you to upload your curriculum and capitalize on that curriculum that you've uploaded. So, that's always a great start if you're looking to get into business or doing some things of that nature. As far as Kim with Ray goes, I do think we have plans to maybe reach out and branch out in some of those other subject areas. But we have a couple other things we got to get accomplished first in our own business before we go down that path. So
Right. So is there anything that you think I missed or you thought I was going to touch on, but maybe I didn't ask you about that you wanted to share?
I don't think so necessarily. You did ask here. I know early on we had some email exchanges. You asked if I had any advice for people with knowledge in a particular area to see how would they maybe proceed or turn that into a business idea.
Right.
And for me, whenever I'm thinking about business ideas, because now once you get bit by that entrepreneur bug, you know what I mean? Everything you look at, you think like, okay, how can I turn this into a business?
Right.
So for me, I always ask myself these two questions. I always ask myself, does anybody else have this problem that I'm having? I want to make sure that the problem that's coming up or the problem that I'm trying to solve is not unique to me. I want to make sure that multiple people have this problem. And for me, chemistry, for sure, tons and tons and tons of people have the problem with chemistry, right?
Yeah.
So, and then the second thing I always ask myself when I'm trying to, when I'm coming up with these business ideas is there already a solution for this problem? And what is that solution? So asking yourself, okay, all right, kids are failing chemistry left and right. What's the solution to this problem? So I looked, I checked out the university level. There's not a lot of resources for students at the university level. A lot of these students couldn't afford tutoring. As I start to piece those things together, now I can see a clear business kind of sitting in the midst of all of that, So whenever, like I said, whenever I'm going through my business, mode and I'm thinking about things, I'm always asking myself those two questions.
Right.
Is this a problem that other people have? And what are the current solutions, or are there any solutions for this problem right now? If you can answer those two questions, and you can answer, yes, a lot of people are having this problem, and no, there's no solution, or yes, there's a solution and it sucks, you're in business.
I think that's good advice, especially for anybody who wants to get started in an entrepreneurial venture.
Any of them. I think that's a great place to start right there. If you got some idea, I think those two questions are the questions you should ask yourself.
Right. So I'll go ahead and end with this last thing. How can people find you and get in touch with you online?
You're definitely welcome to go to my website. Like I said, www.chemwithray.com, or you can shoot me an email at chemwithray@gmail.com. So either one of those ways, I'd be more than happy to, chat with you on any capacity. If you need help with chemistry, we got you. If you are a tutor in a certain subject area or something of that nature, and you want some advice, or you want a little bit more information about what we got going on, I'd be more than happy to share, what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish here with a little bit of chemistry love. So other than that, man, those are the two best ways to get a hold of me, and I'm very responsive all the time. I check my email every hour on the hour, so more than welcome to email me anytime. So
okay. So before I close out, I want to go ahead and take a moment to thank Ray again for joining me on today's episode, sharing all this great information with you all. So I know you got something out of it. So thanks for tuning in with me on today's episode. I hope that you found this information helpful in some way, because I know I have. And if you're knowledgeable in some subject, maybe online tutoring can work for you too. You won't know until you do your beta testing and ask yourself those two questions that Ray gave you. So please share this information with others, and definitely anybody that you feel could benefit from knowing how to take that leap into entrepreneurship through tutoring. So as always, build your dreams, or somebody else will hire you to build theirs.
Thanks for listening to the Creative Entrepreneurs Podcast. Join us next time for more great insights. And don't forget to subscribe to the email list to get the latest information and updates.